Time now for a check of the top business news stories. Kate Moody is here. Hi there, Kate.
Hi, Tom.
Now, students around the world are returning to school, but amidst warnings that too much time out of the classroom could result in a lost generation. Kate, tell us more.
Well, Tom, schools in many countries around the world were closed for an average of around 10 weeks as lockdown restrictions were imposed. Now, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development suggests that those months of lost schooling are likely to have a deep economic cost on global GDP. A generation of children risk losing skills, and as a result, the world's economic output could decrease by up to 1.5% over the rest of the century. Luke Schrago reports.
A welcome sight not just for parents, but for the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, which has warned that weeks of missed schooling have underlined the need for educational change.
L'enjeu, c'est vraiment de permettre aux élèves qui ont pris du retard avec le confinement de pouvoir se mettre à jour sur les compétences. Donc il faudra sûrement développer de l'aide personnalisée, aller dans la direction d'un travail personnalisé avec les élèves.
The OECD believes the loss of skills and reduced capacity to contribute to growth could see the global economy shrink by 1.5% over the decades to come. Traditional educational institutions will need to reinvent themselves as learning goes increasingly online. Vocational qualifications have taken on increased importance too, with essential workers forming the backbone of the lockdown economy, and the lockdown itself revealing further inequalities between rich and poor in need of solving.
Celles-ci vont du haut débit et des ordinateurs nécessaires à l'enseignement en ligne, en passant par les environnements favorables nécessaires pour se concentrer sur l'apprentissage, jusqu'au décalage entre les ressources et les besoins.
The OECD says the focus shouldn't just be on improving those areas, but ensuring education budgets don't shrink. It warned of the dangers of pulling funding in an effort to stabilise other areas of the economy, yet further threatening the futures of those who'll see their opportunities stunted when they finally enter the labour market.
The Eurozone economy contracted 11.8% in the second quarter of 2020. Revised figures from Eurostat were slightly stronger than initial estimates of around 12.1%. It is still a record-breaking contraction for the 19-member bloc, though. GDP fell 14.7% for the broader European Union. Employment across the Eurozone also dipped by about 2.9%, despite a raft of government support programs. The European Central Bank will now be in focus as it meets later this week. Let's check in on the day's trading action now. We've seen the British pound continuing to tumble amid renewed tensions over Brexit trade talks with the European Union. Sterling fell to a one-month low against the US dollar, slipping below $1.30 there and around €1.10. Oil prices have also slumped as the number of coronavirus cases continues to rise globally, and traders worry about prolonged weak demand. A barrel of US WTI trading at around $36.99. That's down over 7%. And international Brent at around $31.91. Well, Wall Street's seeing another sharp tech-driven sell-off. The Nasdaq has slumped as much as 3% earlier in the session. We saw the Dow Jones dropping some 600%. They've recovered slightly. The Nasdaq actually increasing those losses in the last few moments. Less than an hour of trade to go. Shares of Tesla have been tumbling after the committee that oversees the S&P 500 declined to add it to its index. The electric car company remains on the Nasdaq for now. Earlier, the major European indices closed lower as well as tech stocks continued to drop. The CAC 40 losing over 1.5% here in Paris. The French utility EDF saw its shares drop 8%, while the UK's Royal Mail jumped 25%. Moving on to some of the day's other business headlines now. Economic activity in South Africa was cut in half in the second quarter as the country imposed lockdown restrictions in an effort to halt the spread of the coronavirus. Statistics South Africa described that drop as a severe punch in the gut. It plunges the country still deeper into recession. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos has topped Forbes' ranking of the world's richest people for a third year in a row with a fortune of $113 billion. He's followed by Microsoft's Bill Gates and LVMH tycoon Bernard Arnault, who replaced Warren Buffett in that top three for the first time. The numbers were calculated back in March, and many of them, including Jeff Bezos, have since seen their worth rise as their company stocks gained in value. And Uber says it's taking steps towards an all-electric fleet by 2030 in the US, Canada, and Europe. US rival Lyft has already made a similar pledge. The ride-sharing platform says it will spend $800 million to help its drivers speed up their transition. And in Europe, it's partnering with the Renault Nissan. Well, the French government is investing 7 billion euros in hydrogen as a fuel source. The money will go towards finding greener ways of producing the fuel and developing new uses for it, including in trucks and even planes. Kemi Nedlek reports.
Filling up the tank could soon become high-tech and low emissions if a government plan to boost the use of hydrogen in France succeeds.
L'hydrogène comme énergie de la France. Voilà un projet qui apparaissait il y a encore peu de temps comme une promesse lointaine et qui vient de prendre une dimension très réelle depuis quelques jours. Donc, ne pensons pas que l'hydrogène résoudra tout, mais il est certain que l'hydrogène est une opportunité stratégique pour massifier et accélérer la décarbonation des secteurs et des activités les plus difficiles à décarboner, en particulier dans l'industrie et les transports.
The government will invest over 7 billion euros over the next decade to boost hydrogen production and consumption. That includes investment in developing hydrogen-powered trucks and encouraging its use in the chemicals and agriculture industries. The plan will reduce France's emissions by 6 million tonnes of carbon per year from 2030. It's a key way of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. This delivery van in Grenoble has already made the switch. It's pricier than petrol, but also greener.
Vous n'émettez pas de CO2, vous consommez donc déjà pas de carburant. Vous ne pouvez pas imaginer le silence déjà.
Several French towns are already using hydrogen-powered public transport, and hydrogen-powered trains are due to come into service in 2025. But that's set to be a major challenge, as most of the hydrogen in use today actually comes from fossil fuels. A key part of the plan is to switch to greener methods of production.
Probably just the beginning of what we're going to hear about hydrogen as a new energy source, Tom.
That sounds very exciting. Thank you very much indeed for that. Our business editor, Kate Moody. Thank you very much, and I'll be back in about 4 minutes' time. Stay tuned.